ritual known as the Ultimate Hockey Show. No, Rit did not get hijacked. Rit did not get mud. Rit did not anything. Rit did take some well-deserved vacation for the next 2 weeks. So he'll be back 2 weeks from tonight after his well-earned vacation. So I thought, what am I going to do rather than do a show by myself? I thought I'd bring in the guy that is probably the third or fourth most opinionated person that I know when it comes to hockey that isn't actually working presently in the industry. It's a hockey fan that he's a hockey fan as long as I've known him, and we go back some years to broadcasting school. It's a pleasure to bring in guest host Rob Somerville for the next 2 weeks. Good evening, Rob. How are you?
I'm good, Mike. How are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad.
That's hard to believe. That was 13 years ago, or 11 years ago.
11 years ago. I think you were in the class either right front
behind
of me or
you.
right in front of me.
Yours.
Behind mine. Okay.
Right behind yours. We graduated right after you did.
Okay, so that probably was the difference of, I want to say, 3 months.
Yeah.
Anyway, how have you been?
Pretty good, sir.
Pretty good. So, let's get this show going. We're going to have a normal run of show today until 6 p.m. This is the Ultimate Hockey Show. Up to my right. On the right of the screen is Rob Somerville. We're here to talk about the Jets, and Rob just made some news this week. 0-2-1. There's some news pertaining to the lineup, which we'll talk about, I think, when we talked about yesterday's game. The first game of the week was the game in Vancouver, where the Jets probably played one of their worst games of the season, a 6-2 loss in Vancouver. Your thoughts on that game?
My thoughts on that game was the team stunk from the goaltender out.
Yep.
I mean, it was a total malfunction, dysfunctional game from in every aspect of the word. And I mean, if it wasn't for, if I can be honest with you, if it wasn't for Hellebuyck, that score Canucks would have been in double digits.
Probably. And here's the other, the interesting part is, I saw a lot of comparisons, but in a completely different way to another game later on this week, and the Buffalo game and the Vancouver game, right?
Yep.
As much as the Jets dominated that game yesterday, I felt like they couldn't get the big save to keep them in the game. And you and I were exchanging messages, but we'll get to that in just a minute.
Yep.
What did you see from the Canucks? Because for me, watching this game, I saw the Canucks. I saw exactly why the Canucks are fighting for a playoff spot in this game against the Jets.
What I saw was probably the same thing that you saw, was that the Canucks just weren't they were hemming the Jets in, and every chance that they could get, they weren't giving them the chance to break out. They weren't giving them a chance to utilize their long passes and with getting the puck around the perimeter to try and get shots on the net. And then when they had time to take shots, they weren't taking them.
Yeah, and when they took them, it was too late.
Exactly.
And the other thing that kind of seemed to alarm, I don't know if that's the right word, but we'll use that word for certainty. And that is, like, to me, the Jets had the game at 3-2. They hit the goal post. I think Nick Wheeler's a chance to tie it there. They didn't. Vancouver came down and scored, and they got the 2 quick goals to make it 3-2 to 5-2, and the horse sort of left the barn at that time.
Exactly. Well, it had escaped by then.
Yeah, it was just interesting because I felt like the Jets were in the game, but they really weren't. I mean, who knows, right? If they take advantage of those early opportunities, they might turn the game on its head, but who knows? And that didn't happen. I think we saw a desperate Canucks team that's looking to still make the playoffs, and the Jets were a little less desperate than their opponent, hence why they lost.
I also think that the Jets are, unfortunately, they were starting to look ahead of themselves in the schedule and
Yep.
weren't focusing on that game. The same thing, and I could say the same thing about yesterday. I think they're more concerned about tomorrow night than they were
Yep.
about yesterday and or the other game.
Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. Let's quickly move ahead. Let's talk about that game with Edmonton. No McDavid, no Draisaitl. No Draisaitl for the game. No McDavid for the third period. Zach Hyman tied the game. Jeff Skinner with a pair of goals. Jets find a way to win in overtime off the stick of Kyle Connor.
Amazing effort by the Jets in the end. I mean, they were hanging on at times, but in the end, KFC finds a way to win the game for the boys, and that's what you want. You want your key players to come through in the clutch times.
And then, what did you think of Connor Hellebuyck in this game? Because, honestly,
he looked kind of
I'm looking at his stats.
shaky. He looked kind of shaky.
To be honest, he looked kind of shaky in the Vancouver game too.
Yep.
I don't want to make too much of the last two starts, but
no.
Are we starting to see him maybe get a little bit tired?
That's why. Well, you and I have tilted at that windmill for the last couple of weeks about that and saying that once, and I guess I don't know what the scenario is. I know there's been several scenarios I've seen posted regarding what the Jets need or have to do in order to clinch a playoff spot.
Yeah, it's for 1 good. Point or a St. Louis loss of any kind.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. And now what I'm wondering, and this is another thing, now this is off topic, but it's also something that I think is relevant, is that when it comes to statistics and all the things that Hellebuyck is chasing or supposedly has in his grasp or close to, he's not. I can tell you, if it's anything like what he was like in the Four Nations, he's not concerned about his stats himself. He's a team first guy. I mean, yes, it's not. It would be nice if he got those stats that he's after that are within his grasp, but ultimately, he's more so he wants the dubs for the team, not for himself.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, Rob, I think if you're a veteran player and you're a goaltender like Connor Hellebuyck, you want to play every game. You want to be out there with. You want to be out there with your teammates. You want to be out there in the heat of battle. But I think we're seeing a guy that's also coming to the realization that he can't do it by himself anymore.
And that's exactly it.
And so maybe that's why Comrie did in a bit more time. We'll get to Comrie in just a second.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think Hellebuyck's game is regressing. I just think the Jets have had a few off nights at 5-on-5, and we'll have to see if they can get back to it. I think the Jets style of game, I'm not sure if you and I have had this conversation sort of off mic before when you called me and whatnot. But the Jets style of game just seems to be really, really, really demanding.
Incredibly.
To play that style for 82 games, I think it's asking a lot.
Yeah, I agreed.
So maybe some regression at the 5-on-5 game is not be all end all of everything.
No. But the thing is the Jets just have to stick to the systems that are Neil and Davis and the rest of the coaching staff have put out for them starting from the beginning of the year. And first and foremost, just like they have been all year, they need to be accountable to themselves as individuals and to the team.
Yeah, let's look ahead quickly. The game yesterday, Morita, Manitoba, James Reimer in goal for the Buffalo Sabres against the Winnipeg Jets, taking on Eric Comrie. Buffalo with an early goal to make it 1-0. Jets tie it 1-1. Sabres take the lead kind of in a back and forth. 3-1, 3-2, 4-2, 4-3. Really the Jets' inability to finish thanks to James Reimer yesterday. Also have found out that Gabriel Velarde suffered an injury yesterday. Initially, we just thought it was the puck to the ear, but it turned out to be something a little more serious, as Coach O'Neill has announced today, and Robbie sent me the note.
Week to week
For Velarde with an upper body injury. Where did the team go from here? Because it seems like today at practice they put Alex Iafallo in Velarde's spot, and then in comes I'm not even sure who the player was, but would come into the lineup. But Gabriel Velarde no longer on that top line. Alex Iafallo getting the first chance. And Rob, listen, I'm okay with Alex Iafallo in that spot. I've long said, and I'm pretty sure I've told you this, on any other team, Alex Iafallo is not a fourth line player.
Agreed.
So it's a really good opportunity. I get, as you alluded to, for Alex Iafallo to have a good chance. It sounds like Rasmus Kupari is the guy that would come in on the bottom part of the lineup. Therefore, Alex Iafallo. Where have you sort of sat on a guy like Alex Iafallo? Like, he's a pending UFA. We're hearing that the Jets are having discussions with Alex Iafallo's agent on a contract. Do you?
I could see him coming back if the money and the terms right. I could see him coming back for another 2 or 3 years. If between the two parties they can hammer out a legitimate a rational legitimate agreement on a contract.
Would that be something that you would entertain if you were Shoveldayoff?
Given the way this team's played this year, the fewer players that we have to shed for any given reason, yes, the better, because then you've got you have your 3 C's: your consistency, continuity, and cohesion. That's the way I'd look at it. I mean, you want to have, like, that's how a lot of teams get their championships, is that the core of their team isn't broken apart every year, or there aren't major changes made to it.
Yeah, just a quick update here. I did some searching quickly. Jets line rushers at practice today. Shifley centering Connor and Iafallo. Lowry centering Ehlers and Appleton. Nemesnikov centering Niederreiter and Perfetti. Barron centering Tanev and Kupari. Gustafson, the extra player. Then your defense core is Morrissey, DeMello, Sandberg, Shen, Stanley, Miller, Fleury, Hainel, your extra D pair. Hellebuck was on the ice before practice. The practice goaltender today, Eric Comrie, and former friend of the show, Jason Kasdorf.
Yeah, I know Jason. I've met him several times.
Yeah, I went to school with Jason. Kindergarten, grade 12. So
nice guy. He's a nice guy.
Great guy. I did speak for somebody that had a disability. I always felt included by Jason and his family. So that's something all these years later that doesn't go unremembered.
That's for sure.
But no, what do you think of this configuration? I guess my biggest thing is this sort of makeshift second line, if you want to call it that, of Ehlers, Lowry, Alton. Now, part of this, Rob,
go ahead. No, finish your thought. I've got some thoughts on that. In fact, I've got thoughts on the second, third, and the
Yeah.
fourth line for that matter.
Yeah. So part of this, I think, is necessitated by the fact of that late line shuttle in yesterday's game. Where Namestnikov went with Perfetti and Niederreiter, and then they put Lowry up with Ehlers and Appleton for a little bit of size of that second line. But again, it's this is that scenario at the trade deadline, and I don't want to be critical of Dayoff because he's merely pushed all the right buttons, and the coaching staff has seemingly pushed all the right buttons. This is why if you go out and get a top 6 player, you're protected in an event of something like this happening.
Agreed.
So I'm not saying because they didn't add, this is where they are, but because they didn't add, this is where they are, and they have to go with what they have.
Exactly.
What do you think about the way this is configured? I like it.
I'm a little concerned. I've got to say I'm concerned. I'm somewhat concerned.
What concerns you?
Well, the fact that you've taken your third line center, moved him up to second, and you've taken a guy that I thought would have been deserving of getting the bump up to the second line and left him where he is. And then your fourth line, your fourth line is your fourth line, and I think you can guess who I'm talking about on the second line that I thought merited the option or opportunity.
Who is that?
Would be Ehlers. Why would you not give Ehlers the chance to play on that line with Scheifele and Connor?
So would you go Connor, Scheifele, Ehlers?
Then I'd have left Namestnikov between Perfetti and then
Niederreiter.
And then I would have left Lowry with Barron and possibly one of Appleton or Kapari, or actually right. I would have bumped Tanev. I still want to see Tanev play with Lowry because they were really good together when Tanev was here previously.
Yeah, that was that fourth line. That was that third line, and then Brian Little was centering your fourth line.
Yep.
Talked about a fourth line. Listen, the reason I'm okay with this is as follows. I don't believe that Niederreiter, Lowry, and Appleton have been playing particularly their best since the Four Nations break.
No disagreement.
That's why I think this has to do with those types of switches. But where do you sit on the discourse that is going on in the social media verse on this Niederreiter, Lowry, Appleton line? Like, to me, I think it's a little bit misguided and a bit of an overreaction, but I do feel their game has regressed slightly.
Well, I mean, if you look at it realistically, the team itself really hasn't played well for the last week.
Right.
And the fact is it's not just been one part of the team, it's been the entire team. Like there's been lapses in every part of our game, in goaltending, defense, and the forwards.
Yeah.
So but to single out, yes, and you can single out certain individuals, but the fact is overall it's a team game, and that's what it comes down to. It's not, as they say, there is no I in team. You play, it's as the acronym suggests, team together, everyone achieves more. Well, that's what that means.
Right.
And the fact is that if you're not playing as a team, you won't win as a team.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very interesting it's a very interesting dynamic. And this goes back to the trade deadline of I don't think you can have too many good pieces to go on a legitimate run.
Agreed. No, they definitely could have bolstered up more yet. And I
But
guess
but
another
that
thing. Go
but
ahead.
that's neither here nor there right now, right? So
True.
where does Brad Lambert fit into any of this?
Right now, I'm not so sure he does fit into this anymore, because the fact is that if he was going to have been given his chance to have played, he should have been given a chance either sooner, or they're going to wait until the Jets have definitively clinched a playoff spot, and then by that time, then they'll be wanting to have their entire team together so that they don't have any hiccups, if that makes sense.
The other thing is, it looks like Logan Stanley is set to play his second straight game. Are you surprised he's back in?
Yes, incredibly. That was the first thing that caught me off guard when I tuned into the game yesterday. I was like, "What is he doing on the blue line?"
Right.
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. He doesn't. He is not. I mean, in my opinion, in my estimation, he's not. He's not a. He's the seventh defenseman on this team. He's not the fifth, anywhere from fourth to sixth.
Right.
He's the seventh defenseman. He comes in if somebody gets hurt on the back end.
Correct.
And right now there is nobody here. Well, yes, we have Pionk that's hurt, but apparently somebody was saying this morning he was back at practice today and he may play tomorrow.
Yeah, he said he's unavailable still week to week. That's from the Winnipeg Free Press's Ken Weeb. So
okay.
I don't know. I just like.
Well, it's funny because I was watching WST this afternoon, and
yeah,
Mike McIntyre actually thought that he said he thought he was going to play.
Interesting.
Anyways.
But that's neither here nor there right now. Right. You go with what you have.
Agreed.
But I just still think that this is a good team regardless. I just think the power play is the biggest loser in this Gabriel Vilardi extended absence.
Could not agree with you more.
His ability to tip pucks, his ability to create plays in tight. We call that the jam position or the bumper position. I just feel so bad for Gabriel Vilardi. It's been 60 something games where he's been healthy and almost to his first healthy season in some time.
Yep.
But that's the way it goes, and I think Vilardi's step back because of injury is another person's opportunity. And I think we're going to learn the value of Gabriel Vilardi up front just as much as we learned about the value of Dylan Samberg on the back end when he was hurt.
Agreed. And the funny thing was that when the defenseman that stepped in for Samberg, I mean, that was a seamless transition. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better stretch of games for him to miss. I mean, what were the Jets during that time? 16-2-2?
Yep, yeah.
Something like that. It was insane. I mean,
something really ludicrous. Yeah.
Yeah. To think they would go 16-2-2 over a 21 or 20 game span, or whatever, 16-2-3, and over a 21 game span. That's insane. I mean,
but like I struggle, Rob, to figure out what the heck Hayden Fleury has done to stomach being removed from this lineup. Like I struggle with that concept.
You're not the only one. I do too. I mean, I very much don't like that either. I mean, agree. I mean, yes, Fleury is a third, like I would say he's a second or third pairing defenseman at best. He'd never be a top pairing, at least unless it was absolutely necessitated. Yeah. And the fact is that when he's played measurably well in the games that he's played, and he deserves that. Deserves and has merited the chance to stick around.
But here's the thing, like, where do you sit? And I've asked Rick this question. I might as well ask you this question. Where do you sit on Neil Pionk? I don't believe he's a top 4 defenseman uh, in on a team that wins the Stanley Cup. I think he's a 5-6 defenseman on a team that wins the cup. Do you think do you think that this injury is giving the Jets second thoughts on what his next contract might look like?
I agree. Yes, I do think so. I also think that it will probably mean that if he gets a lesser contract or something similar to what he has now, he will be moved down to the third pairing.
Like, to me, there just seems to be way too many defensemen that are NHL caliber right now.
Agreed.
To be able to fit long term, especially if you have a guy from a Moose like Elias Salamonson who's gonna fit in somewhere next year. Like, to me, someone has to go with a player like that is gonna make the lineup, as far as I'm concerned.
Yep. And that's what I'm surprised. I think and you and I have talked about this too. I think Salamonson's going to get a taste of the NHL before the season's over. But once the Jets have clinched their playoff spot.
Yeah, and then what does his spot look like next year, right? And then who do they bring in free agency? Like, to me, I could see the Jets A, not retaining somebody, or B, making a trade with one of their present day defensemen, especially since they brought in Luke Schenn, who's got another year left on his contract.
Yeah, and I also, to be honest with you, I could see if Schenn's happy here this year and next year, I could honestly see him signing on for another couple of years, possibly.
See, and that's the other side that I really don't understand about this, about why Logan Stanley's in the lineup. Like, to me, Luke Schenn is a clear upgrade over Logan Stanley. Yes, you're trying to optimize. I get it. You're trying to optimize your best playoff lineup and try to keep bodies fresh. Like, to me now, the player that doesn't seem to have a whole heck of a lot of opportunity in this lineup as currently constructed is Ville Heinola, which is unfortunate.
And that's been something that's been that way. It's been that situation in itself, and that scenario itself has been that way since day one, because every time he's tried to grab for the so-called brass ring, somebody or something or someone has yanked that carpet out from under his feet and he's gone flying.
Or he's gotten hurt and hasn't quite been the same.
Agreed. No, there was that part too, but I mean, I also think that I think he should be given more rope, have been given more rope to play, and then instead of them saying, well, after 2 or 3 games, it's like, now you're not good enough, and or the player that you're replacing has come back and, well, you're out.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I think it's a very interesting I think it's a very interesting sort of concept.
Well, and another thing to add to that too is if that is the case with Heinola and the Jets truly aren't interested in him going forward, I think they should give him the chance to look at his options elsewhere.
Sorry, who is this? Heinola?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure I knew who you were talking about.
No, I think Heinola deserves the chance. I mean, he's good enough to be an NHL defenseman, possibly on your third pairing, maybe even high second if he can get placed with the right defenseman. And let's see what he can do.
Yeah. You have any closing thoughts on the Jets this past week before we move to the rest of the National Hockey League?
Well, all I know is that the gauntlet of games they've got coming up are scary, are pretty scary.
Washington.
The next 4 games they've got are pretty scary. Well,
Washington,
Jersey,
Washington,
and
New
Vancouver.
Jersey, Vancouver. Yeah. Yeah.
Those 3 games scare me.
Yeah. It's not going to be anything easy this time of year for sure. You can tell the playoffs are getting close.
Yep.
Speaking of the Vancouver Canucks, they're going to get Thatcher Demko back from injury. What do you make of this development?
Well, I have to think that he's going to be. I hope. Well, I mean, I think Kevin Lankinen's just definitely deserving of the starter's role right now, and then unless he absolutely does something to discredit himself in that respect, he should stay there.
Yeah, well, the other thing that's kind of interesting is I wonder if Lankinen kind of getting tired. I don't think he's played this number of games in career in the National Hockey League. I wonder if Lankinen's the starter, and then you look at Demko being the backup because, quite honestly, they haven't gotten enough relative to last year's Stanley Cup playoffs out of Arthur Sheelovs.
Agreed.
And I think
I agree with
really,
you.
I think that's really put a lot of pressure on Kevin Lankinen to get them into the playoffs, and he seems to be hitting a wall.
Yeah, I was just going to say I've been starting to notice that about him.
So we'll see what happens there. But what else jumps out to you? They're playing in New Jersey tonight. New Jersey fighting for their own playoff scenario, even though they're technically locked into third in the Metropolitan right now.
Do you think would the Canucks consider starting Demko tonight against the Devils?
Yeah, he's the confirmed starter tonight. So,
oh wow, okay,
yeah,
good. I'll be interested to see how he plays.
Yeah, no, and that's not a moment too soon for the Canucks as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely not. They definitely need a solid tandem behind them.
So, Rob, what do you make of this Western Conference wild card before we move out east? Just for the record, for those that aren't familiar and don't have standings in front of you, the wild card spots are currently Minnesota. They're at 85. St. Louis at 81. St. Louis has 72 games played. Calgary has 69 games played. And 77 points. The Canucks are at 70 games played and 76 points. Utah Hockey Club 75 points in 70 games. The Ducks next year territory at 68 with 70 games played. To me, this week is going to say a lot about the Vancouver Canucks, and they have not given themselves a lot of wiggle room, runway room, whatever you want to call it, in regards to catching the St. Louis Blues, who have won 6 in a row and are 8-1-1 in their last 10. Don't look now, but I'm having a little bit of PTSD. The last time St. Louis got a little bit hot at this time of year, it came in the first round at the expense of the Winnipeg Jets. However, it's not out of the question that the St. Louis Blues, granted they have 2 more games played than Minnesota, the way they're going, it wouldn't shock me if they ended up catching the Minnesota Wild for the first wild card spot, never mind the second.
Agreed. Now, here's a stat that I didn't hear you bring up, and this was something I heard on the hockey show this afternoon with Mike Futa and
Marchese,
Matt Marchese. The Blues, since the Four Nations, are 12-2-2.
Yep.
That is the best. They are the hottest team in the NHL right now. And that is one thing. And they did bring up the Jets in that scenario. And they said that if you were the Jets right now, would you want to be facing a team that's like a buzzsaw?
Do you have a choice?
No, you don't. But I'm just saying, if you're going into the playoffs and let's just hope yourselves that the team, you as a team being the Jets, are going into the playoffs on a high too, as they have in past years. and so that they don't have to worry about it. And the best thing for the Jets to do, and I've said this all year too, is don't worry about what other teams are doing. Take care of what's going on in your own backyard first.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not a believer in the St. Louis Blues right now. Just by virtue of all those teams in the wild card spot, they have the most games played in the less wiggle room, so to say, as far as games played. But boy, does this put a lot of pressure on Utah. Does this put a lot of pressure on Calgary? Does this put a lot of pressure on Vancouver?
Agreed.
But I still think that it's going to be Calgary that gets in.
Well, any of those teams, even Calgary, well, you know what they say, as long it doesn't matter where you get in as long as you get in, because once the playoff starts, it's a whole new season.
And to be honest, I still haven't ruled out the fact of the Minnesota Wild being the Jets' first round opponent either, the way the Blues are playing.
Agreed.
I think that's something that needs to be considered. And then, if you're the Edmonton Oilers or the Vegas Golden Knights, you want anything to do with the St. Louis Blues on that side of the bracket?
Probably not.
Probably not. I would highly suggest your answer is no. But that's just me, neither here nor there. Let's turn our attention quickly to the East.
Okay.
What do you make of this Atlantic division, Rob? And I made a comment to you a couple of days ago that this was the division that I was watching. The division with the Panthers, Leafs, and Lightning battling 1, 2, 3. Right now, the Panthers with 71 games played, 89 points, 70 games played for both the Leafs, and the Lightning with 87 and 85 points respectively. Ottawa and Montreal currently hold down the wild cards. Montreal 69 games played, 75 points. The Rangers 74 points, but 71 played. Team that just will not go away right now is the Islanders. 69 games played and 73 points, which is too bad of Montreal. Even in games played. Are you with me that the Ottawa Senators might be home and cool as far as the playoff spot goes? And it's really 3 teams battling for one spot?
Yes. I think Ottawa has got their spot. The question as to where they'll finish, that's still up for grabs, but I think they're in.
Do you think there's any chance, Rob, any chance at being 6 points back, 1 game in hand, that they can get to third in the Atlantic?
Well, as they say, anything is possible, but the probability of it, I'd say it's 50-50.
Yeah, see, wait, I'm just looking ahead here. Give me 1 minute. I want to look at the Ottawa Senators schedule. Do the Senators have games in hand or games against teams that are ahead of them? Well, let's just take this week as an example. They got Buffalo tomorrow, Detroit on Thursday, Columbus on Saturday, the Penguins on Sunday, the Sabres next Tuesday. Big one with the Lightning a week from Thursday. They got Lightning, Panthers, a home and home with the Blue Jackets. They still got 3 left with the Jackets.
All the games that you mentioned up to the Tampa Bay games, Tampa Bay game next Thursday, I think are winnable games for them.
Yeah,
all of those games, they're all winnable games for the Sens.
Yeah, and even that Tampa Bay game, I think it's going to be sort of the last call, if you will, when it comes to their chances of being in the Atlantic playoffs.
Agreed.
So how do you see this wild card shaking down? Like, for me, it's three teams for one spot. Montreal, the Rangers, and listen, I think Columbus has fallen off. They've lost 6 in a row. They're not out of it, but they're getting there. Um, yeah, to me, it's really, really difficult to envision a scenario where it's not three teams for one spot.
What about everything that the Rangers have done this year? And I mean, and then to top it off with trading their captain away to Anaheim. That was when they did that, I really questioned what the Rangers' motives were going to be going for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Because the Rangers had two games this past week. Vancouver, they were lucky enough to win, but they were utterly dominated in their own building by the Calgary Flames.
I saw both games.
To me, this is a team that has struggled generating offense of any sort of sustained variety, and they better be sending chats and well wishes and belated Christmas presents to either Shesterkin if they wind up making the playoffs, as far as I'm concerned.
Agreed.
Because he's the one guy to me that hasn't been up or hasn't thrown in the towel, so to say.
Exactly.
But what do you make of the Canadians? Are they for real?
Well, they're definitely proving that they want to stick. They're proving to the pundits that they want to stick around. The question is whether or not they're going to stick around.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess time will tell, right? So what are you looking forward to down the stretch? Like, everybody has between 10 and 13 games left. 13 games is at the lowest, 69 out of 82.
Right.
What are you watching the rest of the year?
Well, first and foremost, obviously, I'll be watching the Jets to see what their fortunes are going forward, and to see that they first of all clinch the their Central Conference, their division, and ultimately the Western Conference. Although with Dallas winning now, apparently Dallas now they're only 6 points. Are they now just 6 points behind us, or are they still 8?
Dallas is 8 with the chance to get it to 6 by using one of their games in hand tonight against Minnesota.
I hope I get to see that game somewhere or somehow. I hope it's on.
Yeah, I'll be listening on the radio tonight probably.
Yeah, maybe that's what. If I can't find it on TV, that's what I'll probably do. I'll tune into the Minnesota radio station.
It's on the iHeartRadio app, KFan.
Okay.
Home of the Vikings, they'll have it. So, yeah, there'll be a lot of interesting things to go down the stretch.
For sure. For sure.
Let's quickly talk about the Jets this week. They're playing Washington tomorrow, at home to the New Jersey Devils on Friday, at home to the Vancouver Canucks. To me, despite the Velarde injury, no excuses. The Jets should go 2-1 this week.
I'm in the same boat. Exactly the same.
I think tomorrow the last chance for them for the President's Trophy goes. Washington wins that game. I think you can sink that ship as far as I'm concerned. Not that I've been caring overly much about the President's Trophy, to be honest. But I think it's really the last chance there. And then New Jersey, they should win just based on the way the Devils have played lately. And Vancouver, a team on the outside looking in, shouldn't need any motivation to get up for that game after what happened the last time they got together.
Agreed. Yeah. And the Jets have had the Devils' number this year. They hopefully will play well against the Devils on Friday night.
Yep, that was the Friday night game there, March 7th in New Jersey. A 6-1 victory over the Devils.
Yeah, they thumped them.
Yeah. Yeah, but again, hindsight 2020.
Of
Uh,
course.
I'm not too sure what's going on in New Jersey lately. Uh, Sheldon Keefe seems to have an issue that he needs to rectify with his hockey team. Um, Suddenly, a defenseman that they signed to a 4-year contract, Jonathan Kovacevic, is in the coach's crosshairs. A few games ago against Calgary, he said, "Well, everybody's the game time decision." Um, I don't know what to make of it from a Devil standpoint, but to me, they've underperformed a little bit this year relative to, we were led to believe anyway, that their team was one piece away from being a Stanley Cup contender. And that piece was Jacob Markstrom, who they went out and got for not a cheap price from the Calgary Flames.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was the crown jewel for the Devils, because you thought once they got their goaltender they'd been after, and this wasn't the first time they tried to get him. This is like the second or the third time they've tried
Yeah.
to get him from Calgary, and finally the Flames traded him.
Yeah, it's very interesting that way, right? And all of a sudden, I think the Devils have a little bit more of a axe to grind as far as being in contention than we were originally led to believe.
Agreed. Yeah.
Do you have any closing thoughts, Rob? I gotta end the show a little bit early tonight. I gotta be somewhere tonight at an event.
Not a problem. No.
But I just wanted to get some hockey talk going while
I'm
Rick was
just curious
away.
about some things I've been reading on my screen as we've been going by, that apparently John Lewis saying that Velarde might not be back this year.
Oof. Yeah, I don't know. I hope that's not true.
I hope not.
personally,
I God help me, I hope not either.
But it certainly didn't sound positive.
I mean, it did. No, it definitely didn't. And I mean, as per what you had said earlier, you were saying that the puck in the face was what was thought to have been what what hurt him. But he came back, but then to come to find out afterwards that like he's going to be gone week to week and possibly.
Yeah, but the putt in the year had absolutely nothing to do with it.
No, agreed.
It's
So you've got to wonder what the other injury is that's gonna have him sidelined for the next 3 weeks or longer.
I wonder if it's something that he's been playing with for a while.
It's possible.
I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I know you the term, I think, freak injury. Who knows? Who knows? So we'll see what happens. I think the Jets are going to be. Yeah, hold on. Yeah, sorry, Velarde was. So the power play units at practice look like this: Line 1, Iafallo, Shifley, Ehlers, Connor, Morrissey. Line 2, Niederreiter, Nemethekov, Appleton, Perfetti, Miller.
Interesting.
Interesting lineup, but anyway, Robbie. Sorry?
I'm somewhat surprised that Shen isn't given a shot on the power play, because apparently he's got a good shot from the point. I mean, if you can get a shot from the point and get somebody in front of it, well.
Speaking of a good shot, Colin Miller had a good one yesterday to get the Jets second goal before the Ehlers goal. So interesting to say the least. Rob, that's it for the show. We're going to have a bit of a shorter show today. I have to get moving on some things today.
All right.
You'll be back in with me next Monday. Rhett back 2 weeks from today. Rhett, we hope you're enjoying your vacation.
I hope you're soaking up the sun or wherever you are.
Wherever you are. Yeah, because you said he was going to maybe tune in, check it out. Anyway, Rob, appreciate you filling in for Rhett here. And,
no problem.
I will
Glad to
talk
help
to you.
out at any time.
I will talk to you off camera here once we disconnect the stream.
Yep.
And then the rest of us, or the rest of the internet verse, will see me and you next week on Monday to recap what should be a fairly consequential week. I did some research. The Jets and Dallas Stars after this week will be even in games played at this time next week. So
Good.
a fairly consequential week coming up for
both teams.
For both teams. So, and we'll leave it at that for Rob Somerville. I'm Michael Darrow, joined as always for the vacation in Red Patty as well. Rob Somerville. I'm Michael Darrow saying so long. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next week. Bye for now.